I'm a male embroiderer, which brings with it a certain amount of novelty, as I've learnt or whatever, but yeah, I'm stitching. I've done 12 pieces in a series called Spam Stitches, which are based on spam emails that I've received or comments that have ended up in my blog, and I've taken these little electronic bits of fluff and I've immortalised them in stitch, for better or worse, I'd say. So I've got classics like "Click here to be better in bed," or "Greetings in the name of God," or "Wouldn't this be applicable in America?" Just random things, you know, but somehow they sort of struck a chord with me, so I thought I'll stitch them up. The production processes that are associated with craft, so your knitting, your textiles, your traditional kind of crafts and stuff, are having a bit of a renaissance, and I think embroidery's right in the middle of that. And it's exciting times. It's exciting times for embroidery because I can't think of another medium where you can do so many new things that people have never seen before. I've been stitching for 9 years, but I guess I've been taking myself seriously for 3 years, if that's the thing. And one of the things that's fascinated me is that embroidery falls outside the traditional art world, or so it seems, you know, for whatever reasons, and there are socio-political reasons that go back a couple of hundred years, but people don't think of embroidery as art, they still think it is something your nana does. And so I love a challenge, and I thought I'll have a go at kind of doing stuff to change that.
I'm a photographer and I work as a freelance photographer, and alongside my commercial work I work on my own projects, mainly focusing on sort of social reportage, just documenting everyday life really, and trying to capture its sort of quirkiness. I do kind of look for just quirky moments that happen that often get overlooked or missed in life. I think it's great to view an image and to have a look, you know, it brings a little chuckle. Because I feel you remember it more. You walk away remembering something different when it makes you laugh. You've connected with it. It's kind of cheered you up, or you take something. I think you take a lot more away when you connect with it with humour than tragedy, definitely.
My name's Emma Wild. My work focuses on painting and drawing, but the last few years probably more focused on drawing. My sort of inspiration or motivation behind my work would be a love of landscape really, and the natural environment and nature-based themes. Also a big influence for me is film, and sort of walking around, I take photographs all the time and I work from photographs, and when I'm out taking pictures I see sort of film references all over the place as well, and this sort of translates into my own work in that I like that idea of looking through the lens and that sense of detachment you get when you're sort of watching a film as well, that sense of things going on behind the scenes and what's happening, and that kind of with film or with cinema, that kind of voyeuristic sense of detachment almost, and that's kind of what I translate into my own drawings really.
Hello, I'm Stuart Southwell. I'm a photographic artist and deal with the grotesque in society. My work's about self-portraiture, but at the same time it's kind of this invented characters of a family. The work I'm going to display is a family tree that's 20 characters from a family called the Pinters, which then eventually go down to their grandchildren and their grandchildren, and through the work I'm actually exploring very many different things. Obviously the idea of adopting an identity within society, that's each one's me, so obviously you've got little telltale signs that it is me in each photograph, like hands and various other features and what have you. But also it's kind of exploring the way people's names, surnames change as they marry into other families. So the background with the grotesque is I'm kind of saying that it is quite this, we're juxtaposing two identities together that are very different sometimes. Obviously not everyone does this, but throughout life I've found that certain scenarios I will act slightly different to what I would in another environment, and I kind of wanted to explore that through the visual whilst displaying traits of the grotesque. So things like having these horrible faces but then ordinary clothes that you'd see somebody walking down the street in, and yeah, so it's kind of taking it out of reality and putting it into this own little fantasy world, but it's touching on ideas within our society.
I'm Caroline Devine and I'm a sound artist. My practice involves the recording, synthesis, manipulation of sound and the diffusion of sound and music. I'm particularly interested in the use of space as an element of composition. So, you know, putting sounds into a particular space and working with that space as an element of the piece. For this piece, I wanted to examine systems for the distribution of sound and music. I work frequently with the voice. Voice features largely in my work, and I use my own voice and the voices of others as well as sort of raw material for composition. And I often also use text for these voices. I've selected text that refers to the legal framework behind the commercial recording industry, and I've chosen to explore that in sound.
I'm Lauren Keeley and I'm 24 years old, and I graduated last year from the Ruskin, Oxford University, and I'm a painter. I'm showing a selection of paintings in the show that have been made from the last 6 months. An important part of the practice is becoming really familiar with something. Most of the paintings have been attempted many times. Some, like the finished product, is after I've made it like 5 times or something, and it seems a bit of a ridiculous thing to do, but it was just like ironing out mistakes all the time, kind of reducing mistakes in them, and so it's just really becoming familiar with the process. It's also become quite important to me that not every painting is approached in exactly the same way, and they all kind of come from the same point, but yeah, I would approach one painting differently to how I may approach another, and so that's also led to me to kind of being interested in a group of paintings as opposed to just individuals. So I don't think any of the paintings in the show, kind of one of them is I don't really see them as individuals. I definitely see them as more of a collective, and I think they kind of all give a broader picture, kind of a fuller picture of my process, because they're kind of all like little excerpts of the process, and I quite like that. Coming up with ideas for a painting, sometimes they're stumbled upon, and despite that my practice is quite strict, maybe they definitely quite often come about by chance, and I think that's connected again to just my practice, that I'm in the studio kind of most days, every week, and so when you're just kind of surrounded by your own work all the time, I suppose you start to really home in on little details, and sometimes it's little details that's enough to kind of fuel one painting.
Okay, hi there, my name's Jason Smith. I'm 24 and I've got a BA in Fine Arts, which I graduated 3 years ago now. My new work, which is being exhibited in New Art MK at MK Gallery, is drawings of small people, miniature little people from, say, a crowd, and what they're doing in my pictures is playing around with structures and shapes and forms, and they have a tendency to sort of get a bit naughty now and then, because what they do is deconstruct items on the paper. A lot of the main ideas come from the ideas from galleries and the way that we, in a gallery, we put work up and then we exhibit it. So there's a spectacle, there is an excitement for the viewers, and then there is a moment where it comes down. And these constant processes, it's sort of like a season, as it were, constantly changing, is partly inspiring my work in that in the pictures you can see things being grown and evolving, and then become part of the spectacle, so you can really enjoy the form, and then they start to become deconstructed. So I think I look at the process of construction and deconstruction quite a lot, and that's where a lot of the ideas come from. And also they are quite a playful way, in that a child like myself, when I was a child, would play with Lego quite a lot, and I would constantly make things and constantly break things. So there's also quite a playful youth sort of inside my work.
Hi, I'm Kamil Szkopik. I study fashion photography at the London College of Fashion, doing my master's there. So the subject matter for the work that I'm exhibiting are strangers that I depicted on the streets, in a corridor, in a restaurant, people that for some reason I found beautiful in a sense, people that amazed me with their appearance, with this body language, with this look, with the eyes. That can be anything, and I think it's quite interesting to think about the whole process of building up the relationship between myself as a photographer and the person who is sitting for me, which is that stranger. And I hope that the images or my photographs can deliver that kind of intimacy that is built up upon that relationship between me and those people.